I mean, looking at this fight, if you see it, Choi coming in 3 years off, right? We don't really know what to expect, and I'm sure you're sort of in the same boat with that. But the reality of the fact is he hasn't handled power well. So someone with power that touches him, he doesn't really handle well. He's buckled in multiple fights. And I've heard a lot of people on MMA pick podcasts that are sort of shitting on you, or at least, you know, pitting you as the dog and saying that his power's there, and really, and comparing, like, say, Cub Swanson, and saying that there's a pedigree level or whatever. But the thing that Swanson brought to the table that hit Choi was the power and the willingness to, like, plant, throw, you know what I mean, and do essentially what the blueprint that Crew on Land, I know, you know, lays out. That he is a beautiful master of violence. I know a lot of people are sort of pinning you as the dog in this. The lines are pinning you as the dog in this. He's 3 years off. You're the one that's active and arguably won the last fight. What's your feel on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, a lot of people are just kind of buying into the hype from Superboy. It was like back in like 2018 maybe or something, because he's on a bit of a 3-fight skid. Now he's still super technical. And I've heard some people say, kind of refer to his power as well. I don't know if I'd call it power. He's got, you know, a very technical straight right cross that he sets up well. He's super long with it. And, yeah, he does hurt guys with it. But I don't feel like that's like he doesn't have like that kind of power on every shot that I feel I have. I feel like, you know, if I throw, whether it's a jab or a cross or a kick, I feel like I've got, you know, some mean intentions on every shot that I throw, whereas he's just a little more technical and yeah, it looks good, but I wouldn't call that like power. I think I'm coming with the power, and yeah, I think, you know, his defense isn't super tight, doesn't have a tight shell, and when he does get touched, which he generally gets touched in almost every fight and gets rocked. So I think, you know, once I touch him, it's going to be a little bit different. I think I'm bigger, I'm more powerful, I'm stronger, and I think when I touch him, it's going to be lights out.
Yeah, I think I'd have to fully agree with the idea that it's technical, with the idea that it's placement, it's timing more than it's actual power. And for you, you have the technique, you have the Muay Thai, and then that power's there, man. Like you see it. It's that scooping overhand just comes in, and people are going to sleep. That plain and simple. And he just doesn't respond well to that. So pressure and a little bit of touch. Definitely an interesting prospect. Now I know for you. You were, you know, on a 6-fight win streak coming into the UFC, crushing numbers. I know obviously you don't want to be, you know, in a situation where you're 1-5 in the UFC. I know there's been a little bit of inactivity at times and everything else. Technically, to me, you're 2-5. You won the last fight, but regardless, for you, what's your sort of? And I've been talking to Josh Hill about this. I've been talking to Rafi and Stotts about this. What's your mental in that idea? Do you go and try to reinvent the wheel somewhat? Do you try to take a different mental approach? Like, what's your sort of approach with you and Crew Orlan and your coaches to this scenario?
I think we're just going back to, you know, some of my earlier UFC fights. Again, my last fight against Herbert, I kind of dialed it back a little bit. You know, I kind of took my foot off the gas pedal. I felt like I was winning. I was striking him. You know, I was holding him against the fence a bit. I was striking him on the fence. So I definitely got too comfortable, and you know, I didn't move forward with the hands as much as I should have. And again, I feel like setting up. You know, I broke him down with the kicks to the legs and the body, and so I think it would have been perfect for me to step forward and start throwing some heavy hands. But I was up on the points. You know, I didn't want to gas. I was a little too comfortable. Whereas in my other fights, you know, I'd start out first round, I'd start off hard, and you know, either I'd finish them, or you know, I'd start to slow down in the second and third. But with this training camp, I've been able to, you know, I had a lot of time to cut weight. This has been the easiest weight cut. This weight cut was easier than the cut down to 155 in my last fight, and my energy's been insane. Like, I had more energy, you know, kind of in fight week with everything dialed in than I've, you know, had even during normal training. So I'm super excited to be able to kind of go back to that kind of old school monster and come forward with that pressure and that power, and, you know, put a pace on this guy and have this newfound kind of cardio and muscular endurance and easy weight cut to be able to sustain that power and cardio for 3 rounds.
That sounds absolutely amazing to me, and that just sounds like an evolution of a fighter to me. Like, just growth from fight to fight. And I mean, a lot of people were sort of on the, does he have the cardio? Does he have the cardio? So then you go with an approach that's a little bit more reserved approach, and you lay out the numbers, and then you're criticized for being low volume, and it's like you can never win in that situation, right? So I always like to understand the sort of the mental behind it and how you take your approach with. I mean, some of the external is real, some of it's not, and you have to sort of stay the course, but then maybe tweak here and there. And I knew it would either come in either volume or maybe even wrestling, but I think volume's a great idea. But for you now, if you're looking at, and I've asked this specific question to Damon Jackson, many fighters that have talked about fear in the cage. And I find that, we can play for the win, but because it's such it really is a life or death sport when it comes down to it. You're a warrior, you go in and you do what you do. For you, preparing for fear, so what you're most afraid of, like Josh Hill, the main thing he said was he's most scared of not leaving it all in the cage, right? So for him, that was the biggest thing. And I know different fighters have different things. Some are saying cardio, whatever else. For you, what's your biggest fear inside the cage?
I would say I don't even have a fear. I can understand fear for sure. I've been competing for so long, from jiu-jitsu tournaments to kickboxing to amateur MMA to pro MMA, and so I do understand where they come from with the word fear. I don't think I don't fear anything in regards to the fight anymore. I think there is a healthy amount of like stress, and I don't know if I'd say anxiety, but definitely stress, just to kind of get your body in that kind of hyper, sensitive. So I'm everything seems like it's in slow motion when I see the punches coming. So yeah, I do believe like I go in with the right amount of stress in my system to kind of put my body in that fight or flight and make sure my body's kind of turning off whatever systems it doesn't need for the fight. And so everything's kind of dialed into that. But I definitely wouldn't say I fear anything going into the fight. I'm confident in my training camp. I'm confident in my skills and my abilities. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I have any fears, but yeah, I definitely do like to make sure I go in at least with a little bit of stress. Sometimes I've gone in maybe too cold and too unemotional, I guess, and then what happens is I find it takes me a little bit longer to get going, to kind of get into the fight. So yeah, I like to try and focus enough stress that I'm able to kind of start off in the zone.
And how would one do that? Is that you? So you're in the back room. Is that you're running through the fight yourself, or running through walking out? Like, how would you create that for yourself, or is it just you sort of let things come in?
Yeah, definitely. Like visualization. I always, like, even in this whole fight camp, I've visualized different scenarios in the fight and how I would react and what I would do. And then as far as building the right amount of, I guess, stress is the best word I could think of right now before the fight, is I visualize like a couple good scenarios, and then I take a break, and then whatever, we warm up, I drink some water, and then I'll visualize maybe some not so great scenarios and how I would fight out of them and then overcome those. And then I just go back and forth with like that. But if you spend too much time, I find, just thinking about the fight and stressing about the fight, then you kind of, you blow up your, like some of your systems and
well, you don't want to have too much of a cortisol release or anything of those things happening.
You don't want to kind of burn through your adrenaline sitting in the change room, going through the fight in your head. So, little bits and pieces I find kind of help get me there without, overloading it.
I'm going to put out my official pick now. So I don't have my Homer hat, but officially to all of you out there that actually listen to us, and God forbid you actually take my picks. So I'm calling Kyle Nelson second round KO.
There we
That's
go.
my play. Watch it, you'll see. Touches him once, Troy's going to buckle a little bit, and then it's game time. But that's my say. That's the man right there. So I know that you're looking to press forward and do what you do, man, and I can't wait to see you let those hands go and take one home for Canada.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for your time once again. Thank you for your support. And Crew Atlanta, and thank you to your wife as well, too. I don't know her name, but thank you for what she's doing to help support you in your dreams and, representing Canada here in the UFC.